Hi, I am Allie Camilletti, and you are listening to Snack Leadership. I will be talking about everything leadership, broken down into bite-sized pieces. You will hear what different leadership skills look like in organizations and how they can rise teams up or take them down. I help leaders build resilience and improve performance by bringing awareness to opportunity behaviors in my business. Spark your mindset. I provide leadership and sales coaching, as well as team building and guest speaking. My hope is for you to feel inspiration and to create a spark in your mindset. Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about curiosity. Curiosity is the intentional pursuit of understanding, a leader's commitment to asking questions, exploring diverse perspectives, and continuous learning rather than assuming they already have all the answers. It's the mindset that transforms uncertainty into opportunity. Tinsley Galyean, author of REFRAME, is a technologist, designer, and co-founder of Curious Learning, a global nonprofit dedicated to eradicating illiteracy. He holds a PhD from the MIT Media Lab and works at the intersection of education, storytelling, and digital innovation, creating interactive experiences for museums and programming for networks like Discovery Kids, Disney, and Warner Brothers. Tinsley, thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited for our conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get started. What is something that you've recently learned about yourself?
Well, with the book coming out, it's kind of pushed the need for me to be more visible and to speak more about myself and my experiences, something that I don't kind of come to naturally. So it's certainly, but part of what I've come to realize is that that's part of, particularly for Curious Learning, as such a global mission, that's part of the work to make sure the work we're doing is visible and people understand the value and need for it. And I have taught a lot. I taught for a while at MIT and at other universities from time to time. So, and that I enjoy very much. So, I've kind of discovered that the process of being more visible is also an opportunity to share what I've learned. And so that's helped kind of open me to those opportunities.
Do you feel nervous about being so visible? Is there anything that kind of gets in the way of that flowing really easily?
No, it's not nervousness really. It's, I'm very comfortable doing the work. Not as much, talking about the work. So that's just kind of where it's at. That's not.
That makes sense because as I look at your background, I would say definitely more engineer mindset a bit. Yeah.
Well, engineer and design. My background's unusual in that it's both both engineering as well as visual arts and design. So a lot of kind of heads down work, right?
Would you say you're an introvert?
That's probably too strong of a word to describe it, but
Okay. So when we talk about curiosity, was there any defining moment that you felt happened for you that really led you to embody this leadership skill?
well, I think it's been something I've cultivated kind of even unwittingly my entire life. But I think what probably brought it to the forefront with this work, with Curious Learning, is, I spent a lot of time, still do, but particularly in the early days of Curious Learning, traveling to many countries, many low-income countries, and spending a lot of time, sometimes sitting on the floor of classrooms or sometimes, a woman's house where she converted her garage to a teaching area, and when you sit in that space and you spend so much time up close with kids of a variety of different backgrounds, cultures, and a huge range of socioeconomic abilities and levels, there's this kind of innate sense of curiosity that kids have, right? We kind of work it out of ourselves. The family and social conditioning, what happens in our environment with people, kind of squashes it, right? It's innately there, and so it's really a matter of opening up to it and remembering it, as opposed to coming to it. And that's it's embodied in the name Curious Learning. We realized as we started developing the nonprofit, which started as a research project out of MIT, that there were two things going on. One was that we were satisfying our own innate curiosity about how kids could learn and how we could help them better learn, but we were also activating their curiosity towards learning. And so that's where the name came from. Curious Learning speaks to both what we're trying to activate in the beneficiaries of our programs, but also what we're satisfying within ourselves as we do the work.
So I kind of want to go there as far as if you have an adult that has shut down maybe that concept of curiosity that's in a leadership position, what would you do knowing the work that you're doing with kids? How does it translate?
Well, usually, you modeling and activating your own curiosity about the situation starts to unfold that, right? It creates a safe spot for that kind of curiosity. It also, true curiosity is about wanting to, understand where someone else is at. And you're asking genuine questions, and that person's really feeling deeply seen as you do that, right? And so that allows people to relax and to speak more and to think about things that maybe they're kind of running past in their mind without thinking through, because you're asking for that information and those answers. So I think probably modeling it and doing it really genuinely is as good a way as any to cultivate it within another person or an organization.
So you talked about as we grow up, it kind of can get squashed at times.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but what else do you think gets in the way of leaders being really curious?
Well, one of the things I talk about in my book is what I refer to as limiting beliefs. And what beliefs are something that all of us hold, and they have value, right? They help us kind of make decisions and steer where we're going and what we frame things that come to us and put them into a context. But sometimes those beliefs shut us down from seeing what's possible, right? And in those contexts, I start referring to them as limiting beliefs. The beliefs have grown to a point in our lives or in our situations where they're limiting our ability to see what is possible, right? So unwinding those is is part of the process and part of what helps us kind of start looking outside the box again, right? The box that we've created for ourselves.
Have you noticed a theme with one particular limiting belief that usually gets in the way?
Oh, limiting beliefs are interesting because they happen on a personal level, and they happen at an organizational level. They happen at a societal level, and they happen at a global level, right? Or at a government or even global level. And so I outline a number of them in my book that are specific to our work, right? As examples, right? And so, those, for example, we use technology to help kids learn to read. Our primary delivery mechanism is through, free open source apps that kids can use to cultivate their literacy skills. And there is, a belief that a number of people still hold. It's broken down a little bit over the years that, screen time is bad for kids,
Yeah.
right? And it's not that there's not an element of truth to that, right? But like with any medium, as happened with television and with any new medium that comes into the world, it's more about what you do with it than what it is, right? So that belief from time to time in conversations shuts down any conversation about our work, right? That somebody's come, is holding the belief that kids should not spend any time with screens, right? And you have to get past that belief and even understand that that's what's going on for them when they shut you down before you can open up to the possibility of what the medium could do for you or how it could help you or your child.
Yeah, I actually have an 8-year-old, and so I'm kinda in it right now with the
Hmm.
conversation you're talking about, and what I have come to learn because at first I was kind of in the same boat, right? Of like, "Oh, we
Yeah.
really wanna limit only an hour a day, 45 minutes a day," right? We kinda go by
Yeah.
the, like, 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off, but the bigger focus is it's the dopamine hit piece with the screen time that I'm paying attention to. It's not a movie. It's not the learning, it's the dopamine hit if she's doing something that is really generating that we want to be conscious of as far as in our home.
Yeah, I think it's you give an 8-year-old, she
Yeah,
daughter, son, she's probably getting to the point where she could start to have some kind of self-reflection about it too. One of the things I did with my
totally.
daughters as they were growing up is that when they wanted to play video games for an extended time, I didn't always stop them from doing it, but what I did require them to do is the next day or at some later time have a conversation with me about how it made them feel and what they were experiencing as a result of that. And that quickly helped them develop the sense of kind of self-reflection skills that allowed them to start to modulate their kind of exposure in time with those different there's different activities for themselves, and that was quite powerful.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, we've been talking a bit about that. Okay, so we talked about like some of the barriers, the mindsets, the limiting beliefs. And I love that you
Hmm.
brought up just the different ways, internally in organizations and even worldly. A big part of the work I do in leadership is talking about the importance of asking questions, which then feeds that
Hmm.
getting into that place of curiosity. Because it's like, where do we
Yes.
start, right? If I'm talking with somebody and they're just like, I'm just not curious, like, okay, let's break it down and let's start at asking questions first. And it was very interesting. I noticed as we were working with some other countries in call centers, there
Hmm.
was a team that I was trying to coach in sales, and they were not comfortable asking questions.
Hmm.
Their society and how they had been brought up was not advocating for asking questions. It was that they should always already know. And I find that that can be the case in leadership too, as growing leaders get in positions and they feel like maybe they don't know, but they don't want to admit they don't know. And so that can get in the way. Have you had experience with that?
Yeah, though I imagine what you're talking about is there's more going on than just that. My suspicion, I don't know what country you're talking about. I'm guessing there's a cultural thing going on too.
Yeah.
Um, we work in numerous countries, low and middle income countries. We operate in 60 different languages. We spend a lot of time. It's very rare for me to be on a phone call that doesn't include 4 or 5 time zones, and there aren't the ability to speak 8 or 9 languages amongst the handful of people that are there. So there's constantly an attentiveness to the differences in kind of social social issues as well and cultural issues. So in that particular case, you were probably the client, and it's very possible that they didn't feel they had permission to ask questions of because it would feel challenging of a client, right? And so, in those cases, you can usually feel them out. You have to, and sometimes it takes time and multiple connections with them, but you have to somehow grant them permission to ask those questions. right? You have to help encourage that. It's probably, in that case, probably not a matter of them feeling like they need to know everything. It's that they haven't been given permission to ask questions.
And you know what was interesting? I worked with some of these people, there was a few of them, for almost a year. And
Mm-hmm,
they were all very similar. And a big part of what we talk about, and I work a lot in the hospitality industry. So when we talk to people in a sales environment, we ask questions. We want to know
yeah.
what's bringing you to the area, what's important to you. And that's where they
Mm-hmm,
just getting over that hurdle just wasn't there. And I did identify at a certain point, and they shared, they're like, we are not encouraged to ask questions like that. We will go back and find the
mm-hmm,
answers without
mm-hmm.
ever asking. But
Yep.
it was their upbringing, and
Yep.
it
It's
made
a
it made me
cultural thing.
sad, really, because I feel like there's so much growth out of curiosity that can happen, and
Mm-hmm.
it's such a limiting belief in that situation. So I love that you're talking about your what you're doing as far as the nonprofit and the educating of other people and kids and stuff. So, what have you witnessed in cultures when there isn't that level of curiosity? Like, can you have one example of that not happening? And I would like to dig into a limiting belief, just one.
Um, the um, well, like when there's not that openness, I think you can see this in an organization or with any group you're kind of working with or an individual. There the conversation can get shut down kind of quickly. People, people can. We all feel it, right? If we're talking to a prospective partner or a client um, or even a colleague, and you start to talk about a topic, and all of a sudden that person kind of turns off or says something that is kind of a marker of the conversation is now over, and you're kind of forced to say, are you going to push through it or not? And that's usually a symbol of a limiting belief at work, right? Of something going on there, right? And curiosity can often be the antidote in that circumstance. You can you can start asking questions. Like, I noticed that you must have some experience that means you know you're less comfortable or less interested in this particular topic. Could you help me understand why? Right. um, and it's really important when you start to do that work that you do it without any preconceptions about what you're gonna hear or do, and also without any judgment about it, right? Even if you're hiding your own judgment, it can be felt by the other in the same way you felt the energy of the situation of them shutting it down. So really leaning into that kind of pure curiosity of deeply understanding where that person's at and what's behind where they came from, to the point where you can you know ask a series of questions, maybe get an understanding of what's going on, and then articulate it back. Something like, if I hear you correctly, I understand that you believe XYZ, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Is that correct? Is that what you're feeling? Right. And when that's done well, somebody feels deeply seen and deeply heard, and also um, drops those guards and is willing to kind of talk about it. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to change the belief, but it is going to give you a deeper understanding of the situation, the circumstance, and it will create more trust between you and the other person.
I'm hearing so many things as you're explaining this. One, that there needs to be trust when you lean in, right? Or a way of
Mm-hmm,
creating trust so that they feel
mm-hmm.
comfortable in sharing. And also their emotional intelligence level of being okay with exploring that, right? That there isn't a real
Yes,
strong ego that's getting in the way where they're getting defensive, but having that openness to go there.
Yeah, and your best recourse for that is to not have any judgment yourself, right? And
Right.
it's not. I mean, there's a limit to how much you can help somebody through that. If there are things that are working for them, there may be resistance, and there are times when there's a lot of resistance. It's kinder to kind of let it go, right? Um, but what you're trying to do is set the stage and model for them the opportunity to step into this space of creative, curious non-judgment.
Love it. So, do you have a mentor that you would say was a great example of somebody that was curious?
Um, well, I'm a strong believer that I generally have something to learn from almost every interaction I have with any person anywhere on the planet. So, I for a long time have kind of tried to cultivate that the curiosity about what I have to learn about from anybody under all circumstances. And I would say, so I'll pick two very extremes and as examples. One is the kids I mentioned earlier. If I'm walking through a low income, temporary housing, some people refer to them as slums environment with kids running around. And, they're kids like any kids who want to, hang on your legs and play with you and, you know, um, and, there's an innate power and energy behind that that's, really infectious. And, how could you not want to be more like that?
Yep.
Particularly with people living in what you would consider such adverse circumstances.
Yeah.
So, in many ways, I think often about those experiences, and I'm fortunate enough to have had many of them, and they're in many ways a guide or a mentoring light for how to behave. Um, the completely opposite end of the spectrum is before starting Curious Learning, I had the opportunity to help launch another nonprofit called the Dalai Lama Center for Ethics and Transformative Values. And so over the course of those few years, I had the opportunity to spend time with His Holiness, with the Dalai Lama. And both in public settings where he was teaching and also in more private settings when we were in meetings. And here is somebody who everybody would hang on every word they had to say. And all he has to do is show up and speak and teach. But that's not all he does. He's innately always curious about everyone else and about what he has to learn from the situation and circumstances. And he exhibits that by his ability to ask questions of folks and to kind of probe and then relate that to his own experiences and and feel a deeper connection to them and have them feel a deeper connection to him. So that's another example that I lean on and think about as well.
Great examples. How about a quote that you feel really connects to that leadership skill of curiosity?
I think I'd say there's always another way to look at something. If you don't think there is, then you haven't looked hard enough, right? It's it's always another perspective, always another way to look at it, and there's value in exercising that kind of flexibility of consciousness.
So true. That's a big reason for the business name I chose, Spark Your Mindset, because when I work with people, I am hoping to help them look at different ways of looking at things. Yeah.
Nice.
But before we close, I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
ask, tell us a little bit about your book. Where can we get it? Is it on audio yet?
So I don't have an audiobook yet. I hope to get one out there soon. It is
Okay,
available in physical book and in ebook. It's available on Amazon. That's probably the easiest place to send people to get it.
great.
Um, it's reframe how curiosity and literacy can redefine us. And it uses the kind of journey of curious learning as a backdrop with lots of travel anecdotes to speak about a lot of what we talked about today, about curiosity and limiting beliefs and how we can transcend them, and with a backdrop of, how can that also help us change the face of the world by eradicating illiteracy.
So good.
Mm,
Thank you. I really feel honored for your share today. You were just a wealth of knowledge and experience. And
Thank you.
I want to close with what's your favorite snack?
This time of year, I'm in New England. It's probably apples. There's so many varieties and they're so good. It's probably this moment. That's probably what it is.
So great. Even me in Bend, Oregon, and we're always crossing our fingers that it's snowing soon. I am loving apples right now, too. There's so many great varieties out there. So, Tinsley,
Excellent.
I really appreciate you, and I'm grateful for our conversation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Snack Leadership. I hope you felt inspiration, motivation, and felt your mindset spark. Snack Leadership is recorded and produced by myself, Ali Camilletti, and music by Shireen Amini.